Chapter 2 One-Eye. The red she-wolf was the first to run away from the man near the fire. Then the rest of the pack followed. A large young gray wolf ran at the front, next to the she-wolf, and an old wolf with only one eye ran on the other side of her. Both of them wanted to make the red she-wolf their mate, and they showed their teeth and growled at one another. The hungry pack ran for the rest of that day, and all through the night. And they were still running across that dead white world the next day. Then they found the moose. It was a large animal, and it was alone. Here was meat and life. The fight began immediately. And it was wild and terrible. Fangs bit into the legs and sides of the moose. But the large animal killed 4 of the wolves, breaking open their heads with his great feet. At last he fell to the ground, and the she-wolf bit into his neck. The other wolves were quick to follow. They started to pull his body open and eat him before he was fully dead. Their stomachs full, the pack rested and slept for the rest of that day. Next morning, the she-wolf, the young gray wolf, and One-Eye took half the pack down to the Mackenzie River and across the country to the east. But slowly, in he-wolf and she-wolf pairs, the wolves went their different ways. In the end, the red she-wolf was alone with the 2 wolves who wanted her. The fight happened soon after. It was fast and to the death. The younger wolf was stronger, but old One-Eye was cleverer, and he was soon the winner. The she-wolf sat and watched the fight. She was happy for One-Eye to be the father of her cubs. After that day, One-Eye and the red wolf ran side by side like good friends. They hunted and killed and ate their meat together. They traveled across country until they came back to the Mackenzie River again. When April came, the she-wolf looked for a place to have her cubs. She was getting very heavy and had to run slowly. Then she found a narrow cave. She looked round it carefully before sitting down to rest inside it. One-Eye looked in at her, and then lay across the front of the cave. He was tired, and he slept for a time. He was hungry, too, but his mate was too tired to hunt with him. So he went out under the warm April sun alone. He came back 8 hours later, hungrier than when he went out. He stopped outside the cave. Soft, strange sounds came from inside, and they were not the sounds of his mate. When he looked in, he saw 5 small cubs with their mother. He tried to go into the cave, but the she-wolf growled and showed her teeth, so he went away again. 4 of the cubs had red hair, like the she-wolf, but 1 was gray, like One Eye. This cub was also the strongest, but like most animals in the wild, he soon learned what being very hungry was like. Every day, One Eye went out to hunt, but there were no animals, and there was no meat for him to bring back to the cave. The cubs became weak and tired, and soon all they could do was sleep. Only the gray cub opened his eyes again. The other 4 died before One Eye could find food. It was soon after this that the old wolf died fighting a lynx. Later, the she-wolf went hunting for meat, and she found old One Eye's body near the lynx's cave. She did not go into the cave. The mother lynx was inside with her cubs, and was too dangerous to fight. One day, while the she-wolf was out hunting, the gray wolf cub went to the mouth of the cave. He looked out at the world for the first time. The light was very bright, but he saw the trees and the river. He saw the mountain and the sky above it. At first, he was afraid, and the hairs on his back stood up. But nothing happened, and after a time, he moved outside, and immediately fell half a meter down to the ground below. He hit his nose on the ground and cried out. Then he fell down a hill. Over and over he went, until at last he stopped. For a minute or two, the gray cub was afraid to move. He sat and looked around him. Then he got up and began walking. He walked into things or fell over them, and he hurt his feet on stones and his head on trees. He came to a stream and looked into the water. But when he put his foot on it, it was cold, and his foot went through it. Then he heard a cry and saw a small yellow animal under his foot. It was a young weasel. The weasel tried to run away, but the little gray cub turned it over with his paw. Suddenly, the mother weasel came to help her child. She attacked, and the cub felt her teeth on his neck. He tried to pull away, but the mother weasel was very strong. She held on to him. Blood came from the cub's neck. He started to feel very ill. Then there was a noise, and the she-wolf came running from the trees. At once, the weasel left the cub to attack the she-wolf. It was a big mistake. The she-wolf was much stronger than the weasel, and a minute later, the mother weasel lay dead on the ground. The little gray cub ran to his mother, and she cleaned the blood from his neck with her mouth. Then the two of them ate the dead weasel before they went back to the cave to sleep.